One of the things that's always interested me is pruning. That is, selectively removing wood from a tree or shrub to maintain a certain shape or improve its overall health or increase the amount of fruit that it produces each year. It seems simple enough at first, but there are actually quite a few variables that affect it, including the type of tree, the time of year, the climate that it's in, and what your goal is with the plant, i.e., what purpose does it serve in the environment. Take this Mohave Pyracantha for instance. Now, I've waited till this time of year to prune it, late winter, because we live in a very hot, wet, humid climate. So late winter is generally the time of year when we want to prune woody trees and shrubs. There's a lot less insects moving disease vectors around and less fungal pressure, etc. So this is the best time of year to do this. So now that we know we're doing this at the right time of year, the next question is, what type of plant is this? And specifically, how is it going to respond to our pruning? This is very important because each species can respond very differently to pruning, and you need to know what to expect when you start cutting on it. Now, Pyracantha is what I'd call a scraggly colonizer. It's going to send out these long whips that you see going in every direction and try to fill in all the space that it can and soak up all the sun that it can, which is what makes it a great hedge. But the problem with that in this particular location is that I want it to be more of a narrow, tall hedge that goes wide in the north and south directions, but it stays about maybe 5 or 6 feet wide in the east and west directions. So with that in mind, the first thing I'm going to do is pour some alcohol on my shears, some isopropyl alcohol. Pyracantha isn't super disease prone, but it can suffer from fire blight, and we do have that around here, as you're going to see in a minute. And alcohol is cheap. I don't see any reason not to use it. Now, like I said, I don't want it to grow too much more this way, which unfortunately the primary leader is going in that direction, but this is going into the neighbor's yard. So I need to stop it and turn it right about here. And I see that I've got a side shoot coming off, heading back toward my side. And it's also going a little bit to the north, which is even better. So I think what I'm gonna do is cut it right here at this side shoot above that. Now what that should do is tell the plant to turn this into the primary leader, and it should keep going that way. I'm actually going to take this little one out below it too. Now we didn't lose too much height on that, but we redirected it in the right direction. So the next thing I want to address are these long whips growing straight west toward the gate. I don't want them to grow into the gate or too far into the path. So like this one is actually coming off of a larger stem that's heading almost directly north. So I want to leave the stuff that's going north, but I am going to take this one all the way back to that limb. There's also some crossing stuff. Anything that's crossing itself, I'm probably going to go ahead and take out. Yeah, this long one's just going to be too crazy, I think. We're going to have to take him all the way back to here. I'm just trying to reduce the stuff that's coming west. Not taking it all out, but some of the stronger ones, like this one. This wind's not making it any easier. You always want to take your time with this stuff. You can only cut it off once and you can never put it back on. So if you're ever in doubt of what to cut, just stop, think about it for a second. It helps if you take off the stuff that you know is going to come off for sure first, you know. Like this one I know I'm going to get rid of, so I'll just take him out now. Anything that's crossing and doesn't really make sense. Like this whole one in the middle, I think doesn't make sense. These things have crazy thorns on them too, so you got to be kind of careful. Probably be easier with gloves, but it'll be all right. So I can see a lot of whips right here together. They probably don't need all of them to be right there. This one's kind of crossing into that one, so I think what I'm going to do, yeah, I'm just going to take this one off all the way back to that stem. Probably don't need this one either. I think I'm going to take this back a little bit. See, I want them to grow to the north, but I don't want it to be a super long whip right now, you know. It needs to kind of fill in, and tip pruning some of these will help with that. See, if I have to decide between two that are similar, I'm going to take the one, I'm going to remove the one that's growing straight toward the fence, because I don't want it to grow that direction, you know. So I'll get rid of that one and leave the other one. You see how this one is crossing? This one right here is like crossed under this and over this one. That tells me that it probably doesn't need this one, because these two, if I leave them, are going to grow this way and fill it in. So what is this one really doing? It's just going to get tangled up in all this for no reason. So I'm going to take that one all the way back to this stem at the bottom and just get rid of that one. And that'll open this up. I think that makes more sense. Same thing with this one. See how it's growing across all this? And it's kind of growing straight west also. So I think I'll take him back to here. I see a side shoot coming off this way, just starting to come off. So if I cut it there, that should grow up and fill in that area, and then we don't have all that tangle right there. All right, so I think that looks a lot better. We narrowed it by cutting back some of the whips, cutting some of them off completely, and cutting others back about, I don't know, 12 inches or so. And we redirected this primary leader to go back the way we want it to. And we cleaned up a lot of the crossing limbs that were rubbing up against each other in there, removed some extra stuff that it didn't need, and I think that looks pretty good. We'll monitor it over the year, and if I need to come out and make another cut, you know, in the summer or something, I will. But we'll probably revisit this one next year around this time and see how it's doing. So now let's move on to a different plant. This is Morella cerifera, also known as the southern wax myrtle. It's one of the most common plants here in Magnolia Bend. A very strong native. It grows very robustly, drought tolerant as you would expect, loves sandy acidic soil like ours. The woods is full of them. I actually dug this one out of the woods, and when I dug it out, it was about that tall. I don't know, maybe foot and a half. You can see how much it's grown in the past year, as expected from a native. Now, this is where knowing something about the plant and its growth habits in the wild can help you know how to prune it. Morella cerifera can either be a tree form, like with a trunk. It can have multiple trunks, like maybe like a magnolia tree, or it can have a spreading growth habit, almost like a hedge. Like it sends out suckers that'll come up, and all these limbs will grow, you know, out to the side in every direction. It'll take over a space if you let it, which might be fine, like if we were using it like we were the Pyracantha to kind of spread laterally. But here, because it's got a Carolina cherry laurel about 9 feet to the south and a swamp teety about 9 feet to the north, I don't really want it to get crazy like that. I'd rather it grow more up and I can train it more like a tree. But I want it to be a multi-trunk tree. Let me bring you in and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm not sure how well you can see this, but we've got multiple trunks or stems at this point, let's say, growing up from a central location. I want this tree to be, well, a tree, not a shrub for one thing, but I want it to be multi-trunked. I want it to have more than one trunk that comes out at slightly different angles and kind of makes a nice shape, right? Originally, I was gonna leave all of these, but the more I look at it, I think I'm gonna remove this one because it's probably just not necessary. These other ones can fill that space in, and I think 3 will be enough. We got one going this way. Maybe this is a better angle. See, we've got this one growing this way, but this one right here, it's coming out here, but so does this. So do we really need this one? And then this one can go kind of toward that way, and these are going this way. So I think the main thing to do on this is just to get rid of this one right here, all the way down at the ground. Then we'll reassess and see if anything else needs to be cleaned up. So all we really need to do on this one is cut this extra trunk or leader off that we don't need. Cut it all the way down at the base. Right? We don't need that one. And I think that's pretty much it. Here's a, well, I thought there was a leader coming out of the ground, but no, I think that's pretty much it. We lucked out and this one grew in a really nice shape already, so there wasn't a whole lot of work to do on him. Sometimes you get lucky. Now it's time for the final boss. Here we have a pear tree that's been neglected for many years. It's never really been pruned except the little bit I did when we moved back here. And it's one my mom planted. I never really could get her to understand that when you're managing trees, you've got to prune them or have somebody prune them. You can't just let them grow like they do in the wild because they end up like this, especially a fruit tree that you're trying to get something off of, you know. But we're gonna try to slowly rectify it. I've been working on it over the past, 2 or 3 years, but we're gonna do some major cuts on it now. I mentioned it in a video recently because it's been suffering from fire blight the last few years. Pears are very susceptible to it. Well, this variety is. I'm not exactly sure which variety it is, but this one definitely got it bad last year. And I was thinking, you know, we had a really wet spring. That's how our tomatoes got all the fungus blight or whatever. And I was thinking maybe that's why the fire blight was so bad last year, because it doesn't really look too bad right now. Of course, it's dormant now, but you should still see something on it if it was gonna have a really bad infection, I would think. But anyway, we're gonna cut it, try to open up the center of it and prevent it from going any taller than it is now, and also clean up some of the suckers, the water shoots or whatever you call them, that come straight up off of the limbs. I'm gonna take a few of those off too, but let me get the ladder so I can get up there and I'll show you what we're gonna do. So because this tree has had such bad fire blight, I'm definitely gonna use alcohol in between every cut on this one because I don't wanna transfer the bacteria from an infected limb to a limb that doesn't have it. So douse this with isopropyl. Okay. Now, I debated a lot on which ones to cut. And I was originally gonna cut this one right here. Don't know if you can see that. This one right here. But on second thought, I decided instead, because this one's kind of going that way, it's not completely straight up. Whereas these, this one and this one, I think I'm gonna get rid of here and here. I'm gonna leave this one over here to do its thing. So I guess I'll start by taking this one off. Now this is kind of a sizable branch, so I'm gonna, to avoid tearing, I'm gonna cut it higher up, you know, than I actually want to, and then I'll come back and cut the rest of it. Now I'll cut the rest of it off at the collar. Okay, now I also want to take this one off. See if I can get into it. I wouldn't recommend putting any kind of wound sealer or anything. From what I understand, arborists don't recommend that anymore anyway, and I've never used it. I mean, I don't see the point of it. It really just traps disease inside it, you know? Now you can see that we opened up the center. Those two larger branches were going right up the middle. I don't know how true this is, but I read somewhere that people that manage orchards, that prune orchard trees, they say you should be able to throw a baseball through the center of the tree. I mean, that's just an interesting saying, but I know for sure that this fire blight, the more the canopy is crowded when it has foliage on it and it gets hot and humid in there with not enough air circulation, that fire blight explodes. So my goal here was to open that up to where when this tree has a bunch of leaves on it, the wind can still blow through the middle and it's not all hot and humid inside the canopy. Now the only thing really left to do is to cut some of these off. You see how this one's growing straight up and it's hitting this? That doesn't really make sense, you know? So any ones that are doing that, that are rubbing like that, I want to get rid of. There's not really a whole lot on this because I cut some off before, and I think Kiyomi has also cleaned some of this up last year. So let me go get the loppers for those and I'll be right back. So like this one, probably just take him back to here because there's a little, that could become a branch maybe. There's some out here. See this one right here? How it's growing straight up? I don't think this really makes sense, this one growing straight up. I'm just gonna get rid of this whole one right here. And same thing with this one right here. See that just doesn't make sense. Anything like that, you might as well just cut it off. What else? There's this one. Can't tell if that's fire blight or not, but there was fire blight here. I can see the black. I wonder if I should get rid of that. Eventually I'm gonna take that whole limb off though, this thing. Wonder if I should do that now. So you shouldn't take more than 20–25% of the canopy off at one time. So you see this one, I don't know if you can see this, but through the fence, but this one, see how it's like right up on the tree? Down there, like it grew straight up. That bark rubbing against itself is not really ideal. And I kind of want to take that one off. I think I am going to take that one off with the saw. This one right here. See, it also grows a little bit into the gate, which isn't a huge problem, but more so, you see how this grew straight up and it grew right along the trunk like that? This bark touching itself is not really healthy in general for the tree, but especially if it's gonna have fire blight. So it is one I'd like to get rid of, and I guess I might as well just do it now. So I guess, see, it's already kind of growing together. I think what I'm gonna do, I don't know how much I can get the saw in there. I don't know if that kind of scares me. I'm gonna try to come up like this, I guess. like this. I don't want to make too huge of a wound, you know, if I can help it. Just get rid of that hole. I mean, that's a lot to remove, but it kind of needs it. I don't know if I should leave that like that or try to cut it a little more square maybe so it's not such a huge wound. See how that's like a huge area? I think if I just come straight in. Like that. Yeah. See that right there? That little gap that was behind that limb? That can hold disease and stuff and rot and moisture that can rot the tree, I guess. I really don't like that. That's why I wanted to get rid of that one. Now hopefully this will heal because that limb just never made sense. See, that's a limb that should have been taken off when this tree was, you know, 3 or 4 feet high, not 25 feet high like it is now. So I think that's all I want to cut off of this tree for now. It wasn't too excessive, but we're probably approaching 20% of the canopy, so I'm going to leave any other cuts for next year. Hopefully the fire blight is not going to be too bad on this one this year. I could spray it with copper. There's a copper solution you can buy that you spray before it puts flowers on it, and it can help with the bacteria. I don't really like using stuff like that, but I do want to try to save this tree. I mean, you know, it takes a long time to get a tree this big, produce this much fruit. So we'll see. I still haven't decided on that. But either way, opening up the canopy like that should help with the humidity issues and the microclimate in the canopy, and maybe suppress that a little bit, dry out the tree a little bit more in a good way so that that bacteria doesn't explode too much. Well, I hope you can see that understanding how the plant wants to grow naturally will inform you of how you should prune it. I mean, some plants you can kind of bend to your will, so to speak, but other plants you really just need to gently shape them and let them do what they're going to do, because if you try to hard prune them or if you try to force them into a certain shape, they're going to suffer and maybe even die, or at least they won't grow very well. So the first step is really understanding what it is you're pruning. Plants are very, very different, as I'm sure you know. Trees are not all the same, and just do a little research. There's plenty of resources online nowadays that you can figure out what you need to do. Also, make sure you're pruning at the right time of year for your location. Down here in the deep south, where it's super hot and humid in the summer, the plants are not going to like it if you prune them then, usually, because like I said, there's just way too much disease, way too many insects. It's hot, they're uncomfortable, they're already struggling to survive the droughts and the heat waves and everything. So you don't want to stress them out anymore by going and cutting a bunch off of them. Whereas in the winter, like right now, the dead of winter, it's relatively cool. There's not a lot of pest pressure or disease. So the plants, trees especially, are sleeping. You know, they're dormant. So now's the best time to do it. So just make sure you're doing it at the right time. Figure out what's your goal with the plant. Is it a hedge, a privacy screen? Is it supposed to bear fruit? Are you cutting it at the right time so that it bears fruit or flowers? That's something a lot of people don't think about. If you prune azaleas or camellias or whatever it is at the wrong time, you're cutting off all the flower buds. Look it up. Does the plant bud or fruit on new growth or old growth? I mean, there's a big difference there to tell you what you want to cut. You know, do you want to leave the new growth until after it fruits or flowers and then cut that off? These are things you have to decide before you start cutting. Don't just go slashing it up willy-nilly because you might regret it. And like I said, you can't put the limbs back on once you cut them off. So just be real sure what you want to cut off first. Something I do sometimes is I'll take a couple pictures of it, from different angles. And then when I'm inside, when I can look at a still picture, sometimes looking at a still picture will let you see what you need to cut more than when you're out here and the wind's blowing everything around and there's all kind of distractions and weather and stuff like that. That's just a suggestion, but make sure that you're sure what you want to cut before you do, and you'll have success. Well, thanks for watching, and until next time, good luck out there.